Can you, Joe, first start out talking about the first time you went to court, seeing David and Quincy, and what's your overall thoughts of him, Quincy, and his entire family for that matter?
Well, honestly, I didn't really know exactly what to think because the information that I had at that time didn't explain everything that I know now. So when you see something like that, you can only go by what they've told you. What they've told me is he's the guy. And so as you look at them, you kind of analyzing the person and kind of seeing, I just didn't see that hard of a person. In my mind, I was thinking maybe that's somebody that knew something about it, helped with it, but not the actual person. But I mean, that's just me thinking. Now, they didn't give us a whole lot of choices because we had to go with what we had. Quite honestly, I didn't like what they were doing, the way they did it. If you're talking about what happened in Clinton, I didn't like how they done it. They kept telling us that we need to take whatever deal we can get. They're trying to get them to take a alpha plea, which means that we can't prove that they're guilty, but they can't prove that they're innocent. I don't like that. I wanted to prove that they're either innocent or guilty. Because when you get a verdict like that, you may never know the real truth. But they didn't give us a whole lot of choices on that. They did ask us, and we were politely told, you better take what you can get, because if you don't get them, you may not get anybody. And you got to remember, it already been 7 years. We wasn't sure we were going to get anybody. So that's kind of frightening to you. And they're telling you they got the right person. So that's kind of the way I was looking at it. I saw Mr. Cross out there supporting his son. I saw his son really not saying anything much. Everybody seemed to think that he was acting kind of arrogant, like a person who was thinking, this is going to soon be over and they'll find out I'm not the one. But that never happened. So that's kind of what we were looking at.
Were you convinced at first, with everything that was being fed to you, that Quincy Cross, Jeffrey Burton, Tamara Caldwell, Victoria Caldwell, and Venetia Stubblefield were guilty of your daughter's homicide?
From the very start, I felt like those young people really didn't have the facilities. They really didn't have the intelligence. They really didn't have what they needed to do this kind of a murder and cover it up to where the police didn't know what took place. I just couldn't figure that. I mean, like I told you before, that should have been cut and dry. They should have been able to say, hey, this is the person, show why they done it, how they done it, when they done it. None of that. I mean, there's certain things in evidence that you ought to be able to find. A motive, opportunity, all of these, none of them was there. If you follow the code of what an investigator is supposed to do, it wasn't there. I mean, the information just didn't follow the right way.
When it came to being in court for yourself, how did you feel, when it came to the Kern family? Did you feel like you needed to give them space, or did you feel like you wanted to tell them that your son was not guilty of their daughter's murder?
Well, basically, I wanted to give him space because I didn't know, we didn't know each other. I didn't know his family, his family didn't know me, but I figured that, I hadn't really been in a courthouse where I had seen a whole trial go on. So I figured, with the lawyers telling me Quincy was in jail and you got nothing to worry about, and not meeting with me, not telling me they don't have no evidence and all that. I mean, I figured, well, later on down the line in this court, we'll find out that they'll find out that Quincy didn't have nothing to do with it. Because as far as when they arrested Quincy, there was no doubt in my mind that Quincy, he's not that type of person. Murder, no. No. He might have got into a fight with somebody or something like that, but that was as far as it was gonna go, you know. So like I said, I figured on down the line that, you know, that somebody was gonna present some evidence that was gonna tell the story, you know. But as time went on, you know, Mr. Karen and them was getting the wrong information, wasn't nothing matching up. I mean, the prosecution was, all they was doing was double talking, saying over the same thing over and over again, hoping somebody believed it with no evidence. During that trial, there was no physical evidence whatsoever to convict nobody of nothing. Of nothing. Now, what was surprising to me that a lot of the lawyers I had, they had the experience and the credentials to do what they needed to do to prove Quincy's innocent, but they didn't do it. They didn't do it, and I believe it was on purpose. I know it was on purpose because I could have did a better job, and I know nothing about being no lawyer than they did. What few little times that they objected to something, the judge could care less. I mean, a lot of times he didn't even pay no attention to them, and they didn't really press the issues, you know, like they were supposed to. You know, you would say, well, you know, after this loss, who lost it? Why did it get from the schoolhouse to City Hall? I mean, none of that. Timelines, as far as telephone calls and things like that, never went into nothing like that. Well, I could have walked in that courtroom and put down enough evidence to at least have the benefit of the doubt, my own self. And I know what the lawyers were supposed to be, look like they were trying to help, but they didn't even make it look good. I mean, you know, that's the way I felt about it. I didn't have no animosity against Mr. Karen, because as we all often have said, we wanted the same thing. We wanted the truth, you know. I wanted the truth for my son, and I wanted the truth for his family. But it never happened. And to this day, it hasn't happened. So that's the way I feel about it.
Do you remember the first time that you spoke to Mr. and Mrs. Kern?
Yeah, I do. And we spoke cordially. I believe it was at the park, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The time we spoke, because like I said, I didn't want him to think that I had no animosity towards him, and I guess he probably didn't want me to think that either, because, like, you know, we wasn't there, I wasn't there, he wasn't there. He didn't know what to think, and I didn't know what to think. So, but like I say, after going to trial and seeing what I saw, you know, nothing. You know, nothing. A railroad job. Somebody trying to hide what happened is what I seen. And I know he was there every day. He seen the same thing I did. And I was sitting there talking to some of the other lawyers that was in the courtroom, and they was telling me there's no physical. I said, well, what it look like? There's no physical evidence in this case. You know, and this was the day before they gave the trial to the jury. You know, and I'm saying to myself, well, I don't know that much about it, but I ain't seen it nothing either. I ain't seen him I ain't seen nobody put Quincy nowhere near his daughter. You know, so I mean, that's the way I thought about it. So that was it. You know what I'm saying? And then when they found him guilty, that rocked my whole world. I mean, you know, that completely devastated me, because I felt like, well, look, if they can do this to Quincy, they can do this to anybody. You know, this could have been me. This could have been Mr. Karen.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been anybody. But that's just the way I saw it, from my perspective. But like I said, I didn't have no animosity toward him. It was the system that I had animosity toward because the system failed both of them.
What was your reaction when the guilty verdict came back? Quincy Cross, essentially 3 life sentences.
Well, I mean, if that was correct, then that person deserved it. But I just didn't, I felt uneasy about all of it. I mean, I wondered what happened to the first 3 people that they picked up. Why we don't hear anything else from them anymore. I mean, how can they be picked up and be said that they the ones who done it? And then all at once, they don't have nothing to do with it anymore, and they pick up some more people, and all at once they're on them, and they're further away from the whole situation than the ones that they originally picked up, because Venetia knew her and had been staying with her brother next door to where Jessica lived. She had went out with the other guy, Lolo, and she knew Jeremy Adams. That's part of it. I don't even know that she even knew who Quincy was at all, even up to her death.
Can you two talk about how this case has brought you two together close as friends, even years later?
I'm just talking.
Right. Like I said,
He explaining to me how he felt, how his son felt, and me telling him about my daughter, and he telling me how he felt about what I told him about my daughter, and we just kind of 2 fathers talking, and he cares for his son, I cared for my daughter, and I want the truth, and he does too, and we kind of started traveling the same road.
well, and let me add a little bit to that. What I couldn't see is the fact that the same 2 witnesses that picked out the first 2 people that was arrested for his daughter's crime turned right around. If they were lying then, how in the world could they turn around and pick Quincy, Jeffrey, and Tamara out, and the police go arrest them for the same crime? If they wasn't reliable at first, how in the world could they be reliable the second time? I mean, it don't take no rocket scientist to understand that something bad wrong with that, and like the police acted like they was glad to put Quincy and Tamara and Jeffrey Burton into this crime. Well, this crime was done in 2000. All right, their names didn't come up till how many years later? What, 5, 6 years later? I mean, good grief! Red flags everywhere. I done dropped red flags all over the place. I mean, that don't even seem real. I mean, to anybody that's in the legal profession, I mean, that should have been red flags in the first place. I mean, the police should have arrested the girls instead of going back and arresting somebody else. But I mean, they did that, and then they let people in the crime scene, so Susan Gabbard, they let her write the script, so to speak, and that's what she done. She wrote the script, and it didn't match nothing. It don't, and to this day, it don't match nothing. To this day, it don't match a thing. So, I mean, we still bound for it because this case is totally, it's way out there. I'm talking about way out in base. And if anybody just take the time to look at it straight and forward, they see that the wrong person's in jail, the wrong person got accused of this crime, and the perpetrator that done this have to be on the street unless he went somewhere else, but he's still on the street, or they are still on the street. So that's nowhere near no justice about this case. Period. He's been in it 27 years. I've been in it 16 or 17 years, ever since they arrested my son. But that's what we want. That's what we want. Like I said, that's what we want. We want justice. We want justice. Whoever killed his daughter is evil. Is evil. They have to have a lot of evilness in their heart, because a regular person couldn't have done what they done. I mean, a regular person couldn't have done what they done, and they don't need to see the day of light. Whoever it was. If I thought my son was guilty, I'd say the same thing.
I mean, that's like he said, that's an evil act when you stab a person, strangle a person, and burn a person, and then dump their body.
That's right.
That's all evil. And
Ain't
most of the time when they do that, it's to send a signal to someone. The people that done this is really heinous and evil and bad. And all I want is justice for my daughter. I'd like to see the truth come out and justice. And eventually, good will prevail over evil.